Every evening, after a long day working at the aircraft repair shop, her phone screen was already glowing in the living room when I walked in. Face down on the table, then quickly snatched into her lap like I was a stranger. At first, I figured it was just work. My wife Stephanie worked in marketing at a tech company in Dallas. Long hours, constant pressure, nonstop notifications were part of the deal. I was 35, she was 32. We'd been married for 5 years, living together in a quiet suburb outside Fort Worth. But lately, it wasn't just the phone. It was the sideways glances, the short answers, the drifting eyes like her mind had left the kitchen and left me. One night over dinner, I joked, "Should I go ahead and book our anniversary dinner now, or wait till you're done with your phone?" She smiled faintly, but didn't look up. "That's still a while away. Let's figure it out later." I didn't feel hurt, just cold, like something had quietly shifted without anyone informing me. About 3 months back, Stephanie suddenly locked her phone. We never worried about privacy before. She used to leave it lying around the couch, and I'd even reply to work texts for her while she cooked. Now, every time it buzzed, she'd walk out to the porch or shut herself in the bedroom. I asked, "Is something new at work? You've been so busy lately." She replied without eye contact, "Just a couple of new projects. It's tiring." One night, I heard her murmuring outside on the balcony. The wind wasn't strong, but her voice dropped low enough to make me pause. I reached for the door, then froze as I caught the words. "Yeah, it's almost done. Just a few more weeks. Then we'll start over." "Yeah, I think so too. A fresh start would be better for both of us." I stood there behind the glass door, heart slowing to a crawl. Who was she talking to? A colleague? A close friend? Or someone I never dared to consider? I went back inside, replaying her words, trying to justify them. But after 5 years of marriage, for the first time, I couldn't convince myself I was just imagining things. The next morning, she acted like nothing happened. "Oh, will you be home early today?" "Maybe, unless there's a last-minute job." "Let's get Mexican food tonight. I'm craving spicy salsa." That sweetness no longer comforted me. It felt like a recording, played on repeat to keep me quiet. From that day on, I started watching closer. Her voice dropped when she took calls. Messages vanished seconds after arriving. When I asked who she was texting, she replied flatly, "My boss," or "Nina, from PR," and then shifted the topic. I tried bringing up our next vacation, asked where she'd like to go. She shrugged, "Up to you." "I'm not sure about my schedule." I mentioned replacing the truck since it was acting up. She replied, "Let's look at the budget later." It was always later, not now, we'll see, like our future had quietly been put on pause for some unspoken reason. I wasn't a suspicious man. I worked 8 hours, came home on time, loved my wife, hid nothing. But ever since I heard her whisper, "Start over," something cracked inside me. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a silent fracture that ran deep. I began preparing for what I feared, but couldn't name. About 3 days after that balcony call, Stephanie stepped into the kitchen while I was making coffee and casually said, "What do you think about organizing all our financial stuff, like accounts, contracts, the house deed, just putting it all in one place in case something happens?" I set the cup down, kept my tone even. "You worried something might happen?" "No, it's just smart. There's been a lot of scams in the news lately. I think we should get everything in order." She sounded like she was looking out for both of us, but her delivery, too polished, too smooth, sent a chill through me. That wasn't concern. That was a plan. That night, after she fell asleep, I sat alone in the garage with the lights dim, opened my laptop. Not for work, but to examine every transaction in our joint account. I found 3 withdrawals over the last 6 weeks, each for a few $100s, transferred to an unfamiliar secondary account. No labels except vague terms like transfer buffer or temp reserve. The pattern, the wording, the amounts, too consistent to be innocent. She had never touched that account before, aside from groceries and utilities. This was deliberate. But I didn't confront her. Not yet. Silence was the only leverage I had. Next morning, I called Alan, a college friend turned financial attorney in Houston. I kept it short. I think my wife's planning something. I need to protect myself. What can I do? He didn't pry, just said, if you suspect it, don't wait for proof. Move your assets. Legally. Now. Alan sent me a list of steps. Transfer most major assets to a trusted relative. Set up a trust. Split funds across less obvious channels. The most important advice? Stay quiet. If she senses you're onto her, the whole thing unravels. I spent the entire weekend taking action. My savings account was moved under my mother's name. She lives in San Antonio. The house title was restructured into joint ownership with my mom through legal proxy. My business shares were redistributed, with a small portion passed to my younger brother as a screen. I left just enough in the joint account to maintain appearances. Every step documented, notarized, emailed to a private address she didn't know existed. That Sunday night, Stephanie came home from the gym holding a smoothie and flashing a bright smile. Got your favorite, strawberry banana. Thanks. I took the cup, noticed a small ink stain on her fingernail, a habit she never had. She used to hate being messy. Now she didn't seem to care. We watched 2 episodes of a series. She curled against me like always, breathing softly, but her closeness no longer felt real. Everything had become a mask. Thin, temporary, waiting for its cue. Over the next days, I kept my routines. Work, grocery trips, morning coffee. Nights, I stayed awake, listening to her phone buzz from behind closed doors. Every time she left the room, I didn't move, just listened. I had no idea what she was building, but one thing was certain. Stephanie wasn't just my wife anymore. She had become someone else entirely. Someone preparing for something I'd soon have to face. I didn't feel angry or betrayed, just like a man steering a boat toward unseen rocks, holding the wheel steady because it's the only thing left to do. My plan was complete. She had no clue, but there was something different in her eyes each time she looked at me. She was waiting for me to act. I didn't. I waited to see what would strike first. Her scheme, or the final crack in what used to be our marriage. On the 13th night after moving my assets, she sat across from me on the gray living room chair, nervously twisting the belt of her robe. No TV, no laptop, no wine, no sound except the silence between 2 people who once shared a life. Christopher. I looked up from the newspaper, keeping a neutral expression. Yeah. She hesitated for a moment, then exhaled, eyes meeting mine. I think I need time for myself. No wind, no street sounds, just my heart pounding in my chest like a silent alarm. What kind of time? I asked calmly. Not just a few days. I need space. I feel like I've lost myself in this marriage. I don't recognize who I am anymore. I've sacrificed so much, but everything feels stuck. She paused, then, like reading from a mental script, added, I think I deserve more. I set the paper down on the glass table, feeling my heartbeat shift, not toward anger, but coldness. A chill that comes when you've already predicted every word. All right, I replied. So what's your plan? She frowned, probably not expecting me to stay this calm. Then she continued, I've been talking to a friend. They've helped me realize what I need, helped me see things more clearly. Her tone tried to frame it as growth, as if this were personal evolution, not betrayal. New friend? Someone from work, not close or anything, just experienced. I didn't push, didn't ask for names, didn't need to. Images flashed in my mind like a rewound reel. Balcony whispers, deleted messages, odd withdrawals. It all connected now, and she was dressing it up as self-discovery. I nodded. If that's what you feel is necessary, I won't stop you. She stayed quiet. So did I. No tears, no shouting. Just a line drawn cleanly between 2 names. The next day, she moved into a new apartment in the Riverbend complex. I watched her SUV back down the driveway and disappear around the corner. By Monday afternoon, I received a thick envelope from a law firm downtown Dallas. Divorce proceedings, asset division proposal, financial support request. vehicle ownership, transfer of private holdings. The strangest part wasn't the shock. It was how detailed everything already was. Just sign here, and it would all be official. She wanted half the house, the truck, a portion of my retirement account, even suggested a living stipend, despite her salary being nearly the same as mine. I placed the file on the table, pulled a can of Dr. Pepper from the fridge, and sat down. No surprise, no rush. Just one question echoing beneath the surface like a hairline crack in concrete. Who helped her write this? Who taught her how to dismantle everything I'd built since I was 26? I checked her social media, still public, no new posts. But scrolling down to a photo from a recent company retreat, a comment stood out, Brandon Chase. A congratulations emoji, followed by, hope you're finally living for yourself. That name had never come up before, but I remembered the rainy afternoon 3 weeks ago, seeing Stephanie outside a cafe standing by a car, a shadowy figure behind fogged glass. The face in Brandon's Facebook profile matched exactly. I screenshotted it, saved it, no hurry. Because if she was playing chess, I had moved my rook before she even touched a pawn, and the next move wasn't one her friend had written into the script. I sat alone at the dinner table, overhead lights shining down on the spread-out divorce papers. Every line read like a blueprint for dividing spoils. Not a hint of emotion or regret. Stephanie demanded half of the house in Arlington, which I'd bought 2 years before the wedding. The truck, though, she'd never driven it more than 5 miles. 40% of my retirement savings, though she'd never contributed a dime. She even requested a temporary living stipend, despite earning nearly the same as me. By the time I reached that part, I wasn't angry, just certain. Someone was orchestrating all of it. Brandon Chase surfaced again in my mind. I opened Facebook, went directly to his profile. Nearly empty aside from a few conference photos and hollow captions. I wasn't looking for him, though. I was looking for who interacted with him the most. One stood out, Jake Morrison. An easy-to-miss name if you weren't paying attention. But he showed up again and again in comments under Brandon's, Stephanie's, and posts from their coworkers. Jake had a likable face, one of those guys who knew how to weaponize a smile. In a group photo from a spring retreat, he stood beside Stephanie. She tilted her head toward him. That wasn't accidental. I opened Jake's page just public enough. 2 months ago, he posted a photo of a coffee cup on a balcony. The angle? Too familiar. Same lighting, same metal railing I'd seen outside Stephanie's new place. A comment read, "Nice view, Jake." He replied, "Even better when someone's there to enjoy it with you." I captured every bit, not to expose them, to build the pattern. The next day, I ran into Max, a former colleague of Stephanie's, at a bakery near my workplace. After a few casual questions, I nudged closer. "Jake still at the same company?" Max raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, word is he's tight with Steph now. They're always out to lunch together." I took a sip of coffee, kept my tone flat. "Chris," Max lowered his voice, "watch your back. Jake doesn't play clean. Got into shady stuff with clients before, but Brandon covered for him." That stuck with me the rest of the afternoon. Back in my car, I pulled up one of Stephanie's older posts, a picture of a candle-lit dinner, captioned, "Healing comes in small moments." Jake was the only one who liked it, and he left 3 fire emojis. Amid all the clues, everything came into focus like a tunnel suddenly lit. This wasn't a breakup driven by fading feelings. It wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision after a sleepless night. It was a plan, pushed, advised, and calculated by someone outside the marriage. Someone manipulating Stephanie like a pawn in a financial conquest. I didn't react yet. It wasn't time. Instead, I opened my laptop and emailed Ellen, my former classmate and now an attorney, with a short subject line, "Time to respond." I attached every piece of evidence, social media screenshots, images, and information tied to Jake, Brandon, and Stephanie's recent activities. 3 minutes later, Ellen called. "Do you want to include this evidence in the response file?" "Not yet, but have it ready. When we mediate, I want everything laid out like a flipped deck." On the other end, he chuckled. "You're more prepared than I thought." I didn't laugh, I just stared at the screen, showing Jake's latest picture, on a balcony, sun behind him, with a short caption, "Some wins aren't loud, but they matter." The mediation room sat on the 6th floor of a glass building overlooking Trinity Park. The space felt quiet, cold, and smelled faintly of freshly printed documents. I arrived 10 minutes early with Alan. He didn't say much, just reviewed the files again, adjusted his tie, and gave a small nod. The door opened. Stephanie walked in, followed by a middle-aged man in a charcoal suit with neatly combed salt and pepper hair. He didn't introduce himself, but I knew this was her legal rep. Stephanie wore a cream blazer, walked slowly but not hesitantly. Her eyes briefly passed over me, then settled on the stack of documents in front of Alan. The mediator, a woman around 50 with a professional tone, outlined the process, emphasizing the goal of reaching mutually acceptable solutions. But, not even 10 minutes in, Stephanie's lawyer began listing demands. My client requests an equal share of the Arlington condo's value, the Ford F-150, the current retirement account, and all savings up to the filing date. She also proposes periodic financial support for 18 months. I didn't flinch. Alan slowly pulled a file from his briefcase and slid it to the center of the table. Before continuing, I believe we should review this information. Her lawyer opened the file and started flipping through. His neutral expression gradually tightened. His hands turned pages faster, eyes scanning each notarized form, transfer date, real estate and bank confirmations. Finally, he looked up, voice more cautious. "These transfers were executed over a month ago?" Alan nodded. "All finalized before the divorce filing. Legal, notarized, reported to tax authorities. These assets are no longer in my client's name." Stephanie leaned over and snatched the folder from her lawyer. She skimmed through it, freezing at one page bearing my mother's signature. She looked up, eyes darkened. "You planned all this?" I didn't answer. "You set me up?" Her voice spiked, prompting the mediator to tap her pen gently on the table. Her lawyer whispered something, but Stephanie ignored him, eyes still locked on me. "You did all this just to dodge responsibility?" Alan spoke instead. "My client has the right to protect legally owned assets, especially when there's evidence of attempted unjust seizure." The air in the room thickened like smoke. Stephanie shoved the file away like it stank, then turned her face. Her lawyer adjusted his glasses and exhaled. "I'll need time to reassess our position." The mediation ended with 0 agreements. As everyone stood to leave, Stephanie suddenly grabbed my arm and pulled me into the hallway. "Why would you do this? You know what I need. You know what I gave up for this marriage." I looked her straight in the eye, no sarcasm, no anger, just one short line. "I just didn't want to be stripped bare by the person who once promised to protect it all with me." She froze. A second later, lips tight, she whispered, "You'll regret this." I said nothing. Not because there was nothing to say, but because every word now would be wasted. The elevator doors opened. She stepped in, shoulders upright, spine straight, but I saw her fingers clench the strap of her bag. The doors closed, reflecting her pale face one last time, drained of all the confidence she had when she walked in. I returned to the room. Alan was waiting. "That's phase 1, done." I gave a small nod. "Are you ready for phase 2? Alan smirked. "Just leave the battlefield to me, though I think we're about to get a surprise call." I glanced at my phone screen. A new message. The sender, Stephanie. I didn't open it, because once the mask falls, there's no point listening to what the actor has to say. The first message came in at 8:14 a.m. the next morning after mediation. Just one line. "But Christopher, I think we need to talk. I went too far." I set the phone down, didn't reply. By noon, the first call came, then a second. By the time I left the office at 5 p.m., my voicemail was full of recordings from a familiar voice, each with a different tone. "You can't think I'm a bad person. I was just lost." "Just pick up, okay? We're better than this." "Who are you doing this for? Your mom? Alan? Or is someone else calling the shots?" That night, the text shifted tone. "You're a coward. You trapped me like some con artist. Real man, huh? You never understood what I endured. Now you're dumping it all on me." I remained silent. The less I reacted, the more she lost control. On the third day, I got a message from Rachel, Stephanie's best friend. Someone I once believed was decent. Hey Chris, Steph told us this divorce was just a test. Like to see if you still cared. Didn't expect you to react so harshly. I sat still in my chair, staring at that message. No question mark, no exclamation, just a hollow statement, reeking of shameless deflection. That afternoon, a coworker approached me in the parking lot, hesitant. I don't mean to get involved, but someone said you pushed your wife to the edge with legal tactics. She called it a legal trap. I chuckled, not aloud, just to pull at the corner of my mouth from sheer exhaustion. The next day, she began posting on social media, a black and white photo with a vague caption. Not everyone is brave enough to face the truth. Sometimes people choose to walk away rather than talk it out. The comments were filled with pity. Stay strong, Steph. If they can't see your worth, they don't deserve you. Sending love to the strongest woman I know. I read them all silently and didn't scroll past, because I knew truth always finds its own way. 3 days later, a message from Kevin, a college friend, popped up. Chris, I don't know the full story, but Steph said you refused to talk things through or compromise. You doing okay? I replied with just one sentence. Give it a little more time and see for yourself. No need to explain, no need to defend. On the 8th day, I got a call from Stephanie's cousin. Her voice was fragile. Chris, I don't want to interfere, but Steph's been talking to the whole family. She said you refused mediation, moved all the assets, and denied responsibility. Her mom's calling everyone, saying you orchestrated the whole thing. I wasn't surprised, I just asked. Did she mention Jake? The silence on the other end said everything. Less than a week later, her carefully crafted image began to crack. A mutual friend, Brian, posted a screenshot of a chat from Jake. In it, Jake praised Stephanie for her clever plan and financial strategy like a pro. That post spread fast among our old college group. People who had once heart-reacted to her sob stories began deleting comments or going quiet. Stephanie kept texting. Her tone changed. If you still have any compassion, you won't let me fall this far. I don't want to lose everything. I made mistakes, okay? And I've got no one left. I stared at the words on my screen. Didn't unlock. Didn't reply. No joy. No satisfaction. Just a cold emptiness and one clear thought. Those who live by deception will fall by it. I didn't do anything else, because her chaos was just the result of the plan she once confidently walked into. Now it was falling apart, at the pace she had chosen. Friday afternoon, I was cleaning my truck in the garage when a message from an unknown number popped up. No name, just one line. You might want to see this. Attached was a string of screenshots. I opened them one by one. The garage door hummed quietly behind me, but the noise in my head was louder. Clear text exchanges between Stephanie and Jake, complete with timestamps. Stephanie sent Jake the asset plan I had suspected came from a third party. She wrote, I'm sending you the draft. The lawyer says if everything lines up, I could get half, maybe even the truck if he doesn't contest. Jake replied without hesitation. Don't back down. Make him feel guilty. Remind him what you've done for him. Just stretch this a few more weeks and we'll have enough to restart. I sat on the metal stool, gripping my phone as if it might shatter. Below that was another thread. Stephanie venting about my attorney. Jake responded like a seasoned strategist. If they play hardball, say you're emotionally worn out. You can use that to negotiate support. I didn't know who had sent the screenshots until the last message appeared. I'm Megan, Jake's old college roommate. He bragged to my friend about engineering a high-stakes divorce. I didn't feel right, so I looked into it. This crossed the line. I didn't reply. I saved everything and forwarded it to Alan with the subject line. Proof of relationship and intent to defraud. The next day, the messages began to circulate, not from me, but from those who had once believed her half-truths. Rachel, the one who once coldly blamed me, posted a vague story, no tags. Awful to be used for something fake. An hour later, Brian reshared the Jake and Stephanie screenshots with a short caption. Not everyone's a victim. The rumors spread faster than any of her previous narratives. Those who supported and shared her cryptic posts now fell silent or took them down. By afternoon, Stephanie's cousin called again. Her voice shook. "Chris, you may not forgive, but I just want to say I was wrong. I believed Steph without question. Looking back, I feel ashamed. I didn't make her say more. Everyone has a choice when facing the truth." That night, Kevin, Stephanie's close friend since high school, sent me an audio recording of a conversation with Jake. In it, Jake sneered. "If it doesn't work out, I lose nothing," she volunteered. I sent that clip to Alan. He replied immediately. "We've got enough to completely dismantle the persona she's trying to maintain. I don't intend to use it to humiliate her, not out of pity, but because I believe when the truth is this clear, it doesn't need help finding the light." Stephanie stayed silent for nearly 3 days. Then, one evening, while I was watching the news, my phone vibrated. It wasn't a message, it was a video call. I hesitated for a second, then declined. A minute later, a message popped up. "I know whatever I say now won't mean anything. I won't make excuses. I was wrong to get swept up in his promises. Jake's gone. I'm sorry." There was no explanation for what she had done, just a late admission after the damage was done. I looked out the window, the Texas sky was darkening, and everything outside felt strangely quiet. This silence didn't feel heavy anymore. It was simply the space left behind when the truth had already been laid bare. By them, not me. The divorce hearing was faster than anyone had expected. There were no rebuttals, no demands for assets, no counterclaims for emotional distress. Stephanie's lawyer barely spoke that morning, reading a few dry procedural lines before withdrawing the initial requests. She didn't sit beside her attorney. She kept her head down and never met my eyes. Outside the courthouse, the sky was clear. A light breeze brushed the stone steps. I stood waiting while Alan went to get the car, casually glancing across the street, where Stephanie sat on a stone bench, clutching a wrinkled canvas bag. No Jake, no one. She looked at me, her eyes red. "Baduki, Babu," didn't come closer. Didn't speak. Jake had vanished just 1 week after everything came out. His social media accounts were wiped clean. None of Stephanie's mutual friends could reach him. Some said he'd been transferred to a Florida branch. Others said he'd done this to at least 2 other women before. Whatever the reason, he'd managed to disappear the moment the plan collapsed. Stephanie's messages still came in, but less frequently. No more accusations, just repeated apologies, quietly dropped into the void. Sometimes just a heart emoji. Other times, long paragraphs that read like goodbye letters. One late night, she called. I let it ring, then sent it to voicemail. Her voice was tired, like she'd been crying for hours. "Ask yourself these 2 questions. I have no left to take from you. I'm not asking any more. I just want to talk one last time. Not about money or blame. Just to say one thing from the heart." I didn't listen further, not out of hate, just because I didn't need to hear anything else to know who severed the final thread between 2 people who once shared a home. 2 months later, the house was repainted. My mom drove in from San Antonio, bringing a few potted plants she used to keep on her porch. "This fern does well by a west-facing window," she said, placing the pot on the new wooden shelf I'd built. She didn't ask about Stephanie. Didn't mention what happened. But while watering the plants, she quietly said, "Peace after a storm is worth more than any words of comfort." I didn't respond, just smiled and carried the wooden chair to the backyard, where the sunset was grazing the edge of the fence. Old friends started showing up again, inviting me to go fishing, play Sunday soccer. Brian brought over some beers and a board game like we used to do before anyone got married. Kevin invited me to his wedding in October. There was no need to explain anything. Turns out, my silence earlier had been the answer they trusted most. One day, I stumbled upon an unread email from Stephanie's former attorney. Not a legal notice, just a forwarded message. "My client wishes to apologize for her past behavior. She is currently in therapy and hopes to maintain peace and avoid further contact." I closed the inbox without replying. That evening, I stood on the front steps, watching the warm glow from the streetlights spill across the porch. Everything was where it should be. Nothing extra, nothing missing. The truck was still parked by the garage, the savings account untouched, my reputation clean, but above all, the one thing I'd truly held on to was peace. Some losses lighten your load, not because they didn't matter, but because holding on would only pull you under. Christopher's story is a sharp reminder from real life. Not every marriage is built on genuine love, and sometimes the one beside you is quietly plotting to take everything. But he didn't lash out. He responded with strategic silence and careful preparation. In the end, the deceiver lost everything, while he kept not just his assets, but his peace and self-respect. It's proof that clarity and composure are the strongest weapons against even the sweetest lies. What do you think about Christopher's choices and Stephanie's actions? Drop your thoughts below and don't forget to follow the channel for more gripping, emotional family stories packed with lessons and heart.